Hello everybody and welcome to live show 128, India and Pakistan face off, escalations after a terrorist attack. As you can see, I'm not in the studio on my laptop because I'm on the road, and we're coming to you live on April 27, 2025, streaming on Rumble, YouTube and X. Let's hope we've got no technical issues tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsor for the show. Yes, we have a sponsor, the Emotional Support Animals Registry, located in the UK, the EU and the USA. The ESA Registry, Emotional Support Animals Registry, securely stores verified handler and animal records, ensuring your emotional support animal status is credible and recognised. It supports legitimate access requests to businesses, travel and housing accommodations by providing trusted documentation for business owners, travel companies, landlords, employers and service providers. And their website links for each region is below in the description. And just above me you'll see a QR code linked to our Bitcoin wallet. And if you're feeling generous, you can send some Bitcoin to help the show. Strap in, folks, because tonight we're ripping the lid off the world's biggest stories. And trust me, you are not ready for what's coming. We've got a lineup that'll blow your mind. First, the crisis shaking South Asia. India and Pakistan are on the collision course after a brutal attack costing 26 lives. Borders slammed shut, a water treaty scrapped. Are we staring down a nuclear showdown? Then, the global currency war explodes. China's digital yuan is gunning for the US dollar's crown, and your money's on the line. We'll dive in escalating tensions with Iran. Another nuclear showdown maybe. Is world sleepwalking into a war no one can win? And hold tight as we unravel the eerie prophecy of Saint Malachy. Is this Pope the last before the end of the days? But wait, tonight we're also cracking open a bombshell. Fort Knox exposed, that iconic vault sold to us as America's golden fortress. It's a house of secrets stuffed with gold seized from citizens, untouched by any real audit. We're peeling back, and speaking of audit, what happened to auditing it? Elon Musk. Anyway, we're peeling back the lies to reveal the greatest financial heist in history. This is your show, people, and we're diving into comments in the Rumble chat live, so jump in, bring the heat, and let's make this unforgettable. If you're fired up, smash that thumbs up, subscribe to our channels, and blast out the word on the socials. Grab a front row seat because this is the world's unraveling, and we're exposing it all right now with no stars required. Let's get on with it. Welcome to the show. As I said, tonight we're not diving into the usual banter or light-hearted takes on the world's quirks. No, tonight we're talking about something heavier, something that's gripping the hearts and minds of millions across South Asia, and frankly, it should grip yours too. I'm talking about the storm brewing between India and Pakistan, two nations with a shared history, shared pain, and right now a shared fury that's pushing them closer to the edge than they've been in years. So, this is a story of tragedy, mistrust, and the kind of high-stakes drama that keeps the world on edge. Let's start with the spark. 4 days ago, on April 22nd, 2025, in a place called Pahalgam, which I've butchered that, of course. Think rolling meadows, pine forests, a spot in in Kashmir they call mini Switzerland. 26 people were gunned down. Tourists, families, folks just trying to soak up the beauty of the place that's supposed to be a respite from the world's chaos. 26 lives snuffed out in minutes. The youngest was a child, the oldest a grandparent dreaming of one last adventure. The Resistance Front, a group India says is a front for Pakistan's Lashkar-e-Taiba, claimed responsibility, and just like that, the fragile thread holding India and Pakistan together snapped. Now I know what you're thinking, another attack in Kashmir, haven't we heard this before? And yeah, you're not wrong. Kashmir's been a breeding ground for this conflict since 1947, when India and Pakistan were carved out of the same cloth, only to spend decades fighting of who gets to claim that valley. But this time, folks, it feels different. This isn't some sort of skirmish or headline that'll fade next week. This is a crisis that's unraveling faster than a bad sitcom, and the consequences, they're not just regional, they're global. So let's break it down. India's response was swift and, honestly, ferocious. Prime Minister Modi didn't mince words. He stood up, looked into the camera, and promised to identify, track, and punish every terrorist and their backer.
Friends, today, from the soil of Bihar, I say to the whole world, India will identify, track, and punish every terrorist and their backers. We will pursue them to the ends of the earth. India's spirit will never be broken by terrorism. Terrorism will not go unpunished. Every effort will be made to ensure that justice is done. The entire nation is firm in this resolve. Everyone who believes in humanity is with us. I thank the people of various countries and their leaders who have stood with us in these times.
And India's backing that up with action. They've pointed the finger at Pakistan, saying two of the attackers were Pakistan nationals. They've offered which is about $24,000 US for info on fugitive. But that didn't stop there. I know India just went big. They suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, a 65-year-old agreement that's basically the lifeline for water sharing between the two countries. Pakistan called it an act of war.
भारत को कहना चाहूंगा कि सिंधु हमारा है और सिंधु हमारा रहेगा या इस दरिया से हमारा पानी बहेगा या उनका खून बहेगा.
India shut down the Attari-Waghar border. You know, that iconic spot where soldiers from both sides do the dramatic march every day. Gone. No more visas for Pakistanis, or Pakistanis in India told to leave by tomorrow. diplomats kicked out, missions slashed to a skeleton crew. This isn't diplomacy, it's a sledgehammer. And Pakistan, they're not sitting quietly. They've denied any role in the attack, with their Foreign Minister Dar practically daring India to show proof. Their National Security Committee has called India's accusation frivolous, even floating the idea that this could be a false flag by India itself. Now, I'm not here to play judge and jury, but that kind of rhetoric, it's gasoline on the fire. Pakistan's hitting back with hard closed their airspace to Indian flights, suspended all trade, kicked out Indian diplomats. Protests are erupting across Pakistan's cities with folks burning effigies of Indian leaders. Even in London, Pakistanis and Indians are demonstrating and fighting against each other. And get this, their defense ministers out there saying India's planning attacks on Pakistan's soil. Meanwhile, both armies are trading fire across the line of control, and Pakistan's Navy is running live fire drills in the Arabian Sea. You feel the heat yet? Because I am. Here's where it gets scarier. These aren't just two neighbors bickering over a fence. These are nuclear powers. India's got about 160 warheads. Pakistan's got about 170. One misstep, one miscalculation, and we're not just talking about a regional dust-up, we're talking about a catastrophe that could ripple across the globe, and the world's watching, wringing its hands. The UN's begging for maximum restraint. The US, they're saying neutral on Kashmir, which, let's be honest, doesn't help.
India and Pakistan, there are tensions after the attack in Kashmir. You got any message for them? Are you going to be talking to their leaders?
I'm very close to India and I'm very close to Pakistan, as you know. And they've had that fight for 1,000 years in Kashmir. Kashmir's been going on for 1,000 years, probably longer than that. And it was a bad one yesterday, though. That was a bad one. Over 30 people.
Are you concerned that there's now tensions on the border between them? Are you concerned about, how are you concerned are you about that?
Well, there have been tensions on that border for 1,500 years. So, you know, the same as it's been. But they'll get it figured out one way or the other. I'm sure that is. I know both leaders. There's great tension between Pakistan and India, but there always has been.
The World Bank, which oversees the water treaty, India just tossed out the window, wasn't even told about it. It's like both countries are saying, rules? What rules? And let's zoom out for a second. Why does this matter to you? Sitting here tonight, maybe we're halfway across the world, because this isn't just about India and Pakistan. It's about what happens when grief and anger drown out reason. The attack in India didn't just kill 26 people, it killed trust. In India, people are furious and Modi's under pressure to act tough. In Pakistan, the public's rallying against what they see as an Indian bullying. Both sides are locked in this cycle of blame and retaliation, and it's not new. Remember 2008, the Mumbai attacks, 2019, the Pulmara bombing. Each time, it's the same script: attack, accuse, escalate, then cool off under global pressure. But this time, with water treaties on the borders in play, the stakes feel higher. And the longer this goes on without dialogue, the closer we get to a point of no return. So let's talk about the human cost, because that's where it gets lost in the headlines. The Kashmir tourist taken a nosedive, people who rely on visitors to put food on the table, hotel workers, guides, shopkeepers, they're protesting, begging for help. In Pakistan, farmers are staring down the barrel of water crisis if their treaty stays suspended. Markets in both countries are tanking. Investors don't exactly love the sound of nuclear neighbours at war. And when there's a cultural fallout, the cricket board in India is asking to keep India and Pakistan apart in the tournaments. Cricket, the one thing that's supposed to bring these countries together. And if we're fighting over cricket, folks, we've got a problem. So what's the way out? I'm not naive to think that I've got an answer, but I'll tell you what I see. Both sides need to stop shouting and start talking. India's got to share whatever evidence it has, put it on the table, let the world see it. Pakistan's got to stop dismissing every accusation as a conspiracy and work with India to root out any terror networks. And the rest of the world, step up. The UN, the US, someone needs to mediate before it spirals into what we can't undo. Because right now, both countries are playing a game of chicken, and nobody wins when the crash happens. And I'll leave you with this. 4 days ago, 26 families lost someone they loved in a place that was supposed to be a paradise. Their grief is real, and so is the fear of millions, wondering what comes next. India and Pakistan have a choice. Keep swinging or step back and find a way to talk. History is watching, and so are we. Let's hope they choose wisely. So let's talk about the global currency war that has ignited with China's digital yuan challenging the US dollar dominance. In the early hours of a quiet Wall Street morning, a seismic shift rocked the global financial system. At 3 a.m., Switzerland's banking clearing system lit up with a red alert. China's cross-border interbanking payment system, CIPS 2.0, powered by the digital yuan, launched simultaneously across 16 Asian and Middle Eastern nations. The first transaction, 120 million yuan, which was 16.5 million US dollar payment for auto parts from Shenzhen to Kuala Lumpur, cleared in a staggering 7.2 seconds. By comparison, SWIFT's 3-day processing cycle seemed prehistoric. This wasn't just a transaction, it was an opening salvo in a blood currency war, with blockchain technology slicing through the foundations of the US dollar hegemony. The digital yuan's blitz, rewriting the rules of finance. China's financial offensive exploits 3 critical vulnerabilities in the dollar-based system, reshaping global trade and finance. Cost distribution. Cross-border payments via SWIFT are notoriously expensive. A $100,000 payment to a Thai supplier cost $4,950, or 4.95% in fees, and takes 72 hours. CIPS 2.0 slashed that to 12 cents in network fees with instant settlement. For global trade worth $30 trillion annually, this could reduce settlement costs by over 90%, transforming cross-border commerce from a costly toll road to a near-free digital highway. Technology dominance. Singapore's DBS Bank tested the digital yuan's dual offline payment feature, which processed transactions without internet access, something Swiss Visa and MasterCard systems can match. Even more transformative, it's a smart contract technology. When Malaysian palm oil arrived at Tajin port, the system automatically released the payment, eliminating document fraud that has long plagued traditional trade. So there's unmatched security. The UAE Central Bank demonstrated the digital yuan's blockchain ledger in action, tracing a money laundering scheme across 16 layered accounts in just 0.3 seconds, using AI-driven risk controls. Meanwhile, 85% of SWIFT's cross-border money laundering cases rely on manual tracing, averaging 47 days. This security gap exposes the dollar system's fragility. A de-dollarization wave is sweeping 16 nations. The ripple effects of this financial revolution are profound. ASEAN aims to sell 9% of inter-regional trade in digital yuan by 2025, with Indonesia integrating the yuan into its core forex reserves. Saudi Aramco's crude oil contract with Sinopec now prices 65% in digital yuan, shrinking settlement times from 5 days to instantaneous. Even the City of London, scrambling to launch a digital pound accelerator, concedes it trails China by at least 2 to 3 years. Swiss struggles and the dollar's waning grip. The US dollar system is faltering under this technology onslaught. When the US Treasury hinted at sanctions, Malaysia's central bank fired back, refusing to facilitate illicit transactions like those tied to Afghan opium trafficking. SWIFT's own data reveals that 23% of suspicious transactions flow to unknown entities. Compounding the challenge, China controls 78% of global rare earths refining and 85% of neodymium magnet production, key components for blockchain infrastructure. These resource and technological dominance fortifies the digital yuan's position. A new financial order, infrastructure as power. The digital yuan isn't merely challenging the dollar, it's redefining global finance by transforming cross-border payments from an elite privilege to an instant accessible service. It dismantles the dollar's monopoly on settlement systems. Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz aptly observed, the digital yuan isn't replacing the dollar, it's redefining the dimension of monetary civilization. So what's the conclusion? A multipolar monetary future? China's digital yuan has ignited a currency war that prioritizes technology over military might. 7-second settlements and blockchain ledgers become the norm. The global financial landscape is tilting towards a multipolar system where efficiency, security, and accessibility reign. Yet, this shift may provoke a fierce response from traditional powers desperate to preserve their influence. Will the digital yuan usher in a democratized financial era, or will it spark a broader economic conflict? The battle for global currency supremacy is just beginning, and its outcome will shape the future for money for generations. With Iran and the risk of war and its global impact. The tensions between the United States and Iran have been simmering for decades, primarily over Iran's nuclear ambitions and regional influence. Since 1979 overthrow of the Shah and subsequent US embassy crisis, the two nations have used each other as adversaries. Iran finds itself at odds with the US ally Israel, another theocratic state with deep religious and political divides. The Quran and the Hadiths, central to Iran's ideology, frame non-believers, particularly Jews, as adversaries, a stance mirrored by Israel's own hardline positions. This religious friction, combined with geopolitical maneuvering, has brought the region to a boiling point. The likelihood of this standoff escalating into a full-scale war is pressing concern. Iran has historically avoided direct attacks on Israel, but last year's missile barrage marked a significant shift. Primary proxy, the Houthis in northern Yemen have been a key player in this conflict, launching missiles at Israel and targeting ships in the Red Seas. The Houthis, fellow Shia Muslims, are supported by Iran with weapons and resources, amplifying their ability to disrupt the region. Yemen, a fractured state plagued by poverty and tribal divisions, offers little strategic value, yet the US has engaged in airstrikes against the Houthis, targeting what are often described as primitive targets. These actions, costing millions, have been criticised as unnecessary and escalatory, with the Houthis posing no direct threat to the US. The US military presence in the region is growing, with the reports of B-2 bombers and other assets being moved to Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, a potential staging ground for an attack on Iran. Such moves signal a readiness for the conflict, but they also raise questions on whether the US is being drawn into a war by its ally Israel. The close relationship between the two nations, marked by billions in annual aid, has long been a point of contention. Critics argue that this support, alongside influence of dual national US officials with ties to Israel, could pressure the US into a conflict it might otherwise avoid.
So President Trump, very straightforward and blunt today. And you can tell President Trump says, hey, this is simple. They're not going to get a nuclear weapon, and I don't want to go in and have death and destruction. And certainly if you look at the article, come over and be pushed over and over again, and donors calling, it's not going to happen. There's so many other ways that we haven't even pursued. They're saying, oh, they're going to have a bomb next week. They're not going to have a bomb next week. You have to be serious about putting the screws right in their head. And you can do it if you're serious. But we're not going to get drawn in. The collateral damage, this ain't Iraq and it ain't Afghanistan. This is an ancient civilization. We're very proud, tough people. You go in there and you're going to be in there for a decade, okay? And your sons and daughters are going to be there. And it ain't going to happen.
So we're pursuing diplomacy with the leverage of potential military action.
Correct. That is how it's supposed to work. Now, there's risks in that. You could create a security dilemma, a spiral. So you have to be careful, but that is essentially why the DoD exists. Now, with that said, there are obviously specifics I can't get into, but I think it is fair to say that a war with Iran risks being incredibly costly in terms of lives and dollars and instability in the Middle East.
Lives and dollars, American lives, American dollars.
The lives of Americans, the lives of Iraqis, of Saudis, of Bahrainians, of
Israelis.
Emiratis, yes, of Israelis, and of course Iranians.
If a war with Iran were to erupt, the consequences would be severe. Iran could close the Straits of Hormuz, a narrow 30-mile wide choke point in the Persian Gulf, through which much of the Middle East oil flows.
Because they don't have the power to do it. So that should tell you.
Wait a minute. That's a fundamentally false statement.
Which part?
False. They don't have the power to go to war. You haven't looked carefully at Iran. Iran's arsenal of missiles is enormous. It could flatten Israel in a day. They have the power to go to war. They have chosen repeatedly to avoid war. And I've said this 1,000 times. No one in the Middle East is interested in a war except Israel and the United States. That's it. There's no one else in the region that wants a war. Everyone is going to go to great lengths to avoid a war, not because of Israel, but because of us. The Iranians don't want to go to war with us. The Iranians have been trying for 30 years to change their relationship with the United States, to build a rapport economically, socially, politically with the United States. So don't make the mistake of assuming because someone has opted not to do something, they can't. The real question at this stage is, what's the incentive for them to continue to do nothing, particularly when they're told that the only way they can satisfy us, potentially, based upon Mr. Netanyahu's demands, is to turn themselves into Libya. And we all know what happened in Libya.
Right. Yeah. Not a good situation to cite if you want them to accomplish it. But
so don't assume this weakness. I mean, people said the same things about the Russians.
Similarly, the Houthis could block the Red Sea exit to the Indian Ocean, rendering the Suez Canal useless. These closures would devastate global trade, particularly oil markets, creating a ripple effect across the world economy. While the US, now a net oil exporter, might be less directly impacted, the global chaos would be undeniable, with potentially losses, including sunken US ships in a conflict that's far more intense than recent engagements. Unlike the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, a conflict with Iran would be far more challenging. Iran's vast size, mountainous terrain, and population of 80 million make a ground invasion nearly impossible.
Invading Iran by land is nearly impossible, and that's all because of its unique geography. To the west, you've got the Zagros Mountains, a massive, rugged range with very few passes, and those few routes, they can be easily defended, making large-scale invasions incredibly difficult. In the north, the Elburz Mountains stretch along the Caspian Sea. Their high altitudes and tough terrain make them a natural wall, blocking any northern approach. To the east, bordering Afghanistan and Pakistan, there's another set of mountains. Not an easy entry point either. And the center of Iran, two deadly deserts, the Dasht-e-Kavir and the Dasht-e-Lut. Extreme heat, salt flats, treacherous terrain that can trap vehicles and cripple supply chains. Mountains, deserts, narrow passes. Iran is a natural fortress, and that's why invading Iran by land is a military nightmare.
The US has already lost significant resources in its operations against the Houthis, including drones worth millions, suggesting that a broader war would be economically disastrous. However, there is a glimmer of hope in diplomacy. The current US administration, despite its aggressive rhetoric, has engaged in talks with Iran, a stark contrast to the previous administration's refusal to negotiate with either Iran or Russia. These discussions, through tense potential off-ramp from conflict, even as demands for Iran to dismantle its nuclear program and demilitarize remain non-starters.
One thing, they just can't have a nuclear weapon. I'm saving them a lot of money just in that. Having a nuclear weapon is really expensive, but it's also very dangerous, and they can't have a nuclear weapon. And just that, I'm saving them billions and billions of dollars, because that's what it would cost. Now, with that being said, the Iran deal is coming along very well. We're dealing at the highest levels of Iran, and I think they want to make a deal, and we want to make a deal.
The broader implications of the war with Iran extend beyond the Middle East. Iran maintains close trade with military ties with China and Russia, both whom are likely to support Tehran with technology and resources, possibly covertly. This could further strain US relations with these global powers, already at a low point.
Another topic of mutual interest is the situation surrounding the Iranian nuclear program. We support efforts by Tehran and by Washington to find, through bilateral talks, ways to alleviate the tensions, which will bring more stability not only to the Gulf but to the Middle East as a whole, as well as the surrounding regions.
A war could also disrupt the current administration's domestic priorities, diverting resources and tensions from pressing issues at home. The US military budget, already a staggering $800 billion and potentially rising to $1 trillion, would balloon further, making the nation's financial strain at a time when it is already grappling with economic challenges. The geopolitical and financial consequences of a conflict would be profound. A war would likely empower the military-industrial complex, benefiting those who profit from conflict while offering little tangible gain for the US. Global markets would face upheaval, with oil prices soaring and trade routes disrupted. The US could find itself isolated, its actions echoing the decline of ancient powers like Athens, which bankrupted itself through unnecessary wars. As history has shown, no battle plan survives first contact with the enemy, and the US risks overextending itself in a conflict that it could not easily win.
And the Iranians will be dead set on sticking to the 2015 JCPOA terms, but this time increasing and tightening U.S. commitments because they saw how easily the Americans could walk away from a deal and scuttle the whole thing, even though Europeans and other parties had signed on. So the other thing we might see is the Iranians using an age-old tactic, the patient carpet weaver mentality, to string out these talks as long as possible to destroy Trump's momentum toward war and, to keep it off the table. So it really depends on what both parties are looking to obtain from the get-go.
The conclusion is the escalating tensions with Iran present a critical challenge for the US and the world, while the potential for war looms large. The costs, both financially and geopolitical, would be catastrophic, with little to gain and much to lose. Diplomacy through fraught remains the best path forward to avoid a conflict that would reshape the global order. The stakes are high, and the world watches as the US navigates this dangerous crossroads. Still in Iran, on April 26th, yesterday, a massive explosion tore through Shahid Raji port in Bandar Abbas. Iran's largest commercial port, killing at least 25 people and injuring over 800. The blast, likely triggered by improperly stored chemicals, possibly sodium perchlorate, used in missile propellant, sounds a bit sus, maybe it was sabotage, sent thick black smoke and reddish-humed plume billowing into the sky, shattering windows miles away and shaking the nearby island of Qazim, 16 miles south. Social media footage captured the chaos, with debris scattered and injured victims crowding hospitals. Helicopters and planes dumped water on the raging fire, which spread through the port into Sunday. Today, halting operations at this critical hub on the Strait of Hormuz. Through which 20% of the global oil passes. Iranian officials, while not confirming sabotage, noted heightened security alerts due to past incidents, including a 2020 Israeli cyber attack on the same port.
ساعت 8:30 دقیقه 20:30 دقیقه
Yo, stay here, go!
The Provincial Attorney General ordered an urgent investigation as the disaster exposes vulnerabilities in Iran's aging infrastructure, drawing parallels to the 2020 Beirut port explosion, which may have been sabotaged as well by the Israelis. Pope Francis's death and a simplified funeral mark a humble legacy. On April 21st, Pope Francis passed away at 88 in Vatican City's Domus Sanctae Martyr, succumbing to a stroke and irreversible cardiac arrest after a month-long battle with double pneumonia. His death, announced by Cardinal Farrell, the Carmagello, triggered a wave of global mourning and a series of ancient yet simplified rites and rituals, reflecting Francis's lifelong humility. Francis, the first Latin American pope, died 6 days after delivering a frail Easter blessing, his health having deteriorated since February, hospitalization for bronchitis and pneumonia. His passing, verified in a solemn chapel ceremony, marked the start of the Sede Vacante, a 9-day mourning period called the Nomen Dialis. True to his wishes, Francis' funeral on April 26th, yesterday, in St. Petersburg Square, was stripped of traditional pomp. He rejected the elaborate triple coffin burial, cypress, lead, oak, for a single wooden casket lined with zinc, and his body lay in state inside an open coffin at St. Peter's Basilica, not on a raised stand, but allowing over 250,000 mourners to pay respects over 3 days. The Mass of Requiem, led by Cardinal Basanti Re, drew 400,000 attendees, including world leaders like US President Donald Trump and even the dictator from Ukraine. Breaking centuries of tradition, Francis was buried outside the Vatican at the Basilica of St. Mary Major, a site dear to him for his first pope and turned there in over a century. His coffin, carried by the Pope-mobile, was laid in a niche near the Salus Pompeiu Romani icon, accompanied by the regatta detailing his life and coins from his papacy. The funeral, broadcast globally, saw diplomatic and Russian President Vladimir Putin stayed away. Rome deployed over 2,000 police for security, and Francis' simplified rites, outlined in the updated Ordo Esquarium Romani Pontificus, emphasized his view of the papacy as a pastoral role, not a worldly power. As the Vatican prepares for a conclave between May 6th and 11th to elect his successor, Francis' death closes a 12-year papacy defined by outreach to marginalized and clashes with traditionalists. His funeral, like his life, was a testament to simplicity, leaving a legacy that challenged the Church's future directions.
Nam et siambulavero in valle umbre mortis non timebo mala, quoniam tu mecum es. Illo copas tuae, ibi mego locali.
The final pope, unraveling the prophecy of Saint Malachy. The ancient prophecy attributed to Saint Malachy, a 12th century Irish bishop, invaded those intrigued by apocalyptic predictions and the fate of the Catholic Church. Known as the Prophecy of Supreme Pontiffs, this cryptic text allegedly foretells the succession of popes from Malachy's time until the end of the world. According to the prophecy, the 112th pope would be the last, after whose reign Rome would be destroyed, ushering the last judgment and the end of human history. With the recent passing of the 112th Pope Francis, in this alleged sequence, the prophecy has once again stirred debate and speculation. The prophecy of the Supreme Pontiffs is said to have been written by Saint Malachy in 1139 during a visit to Rome, the document consists of 112 short enigmatic Latin mottos, each corresponding to a future pope. These mottos are often symbolic, describing a pope's characteristics, coat of arms, birthplace, or significant events during their papacy. For example, the motto for the 111th pope, De Gloria Olivia, from the glory of the olive, was linked to Pope Benedict, whose chosen name resonates with the Benedictine order, which ties to the olive branch as a symbol of peace. The final motto associated with the 112th Pope is Peritus Romanus, or Peter the Roman, who, according to the prophecy, will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the city of the seven hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful the people. In recent passing of the 112th Pope, in this sequence, widely interpreted as Pope Francis, who reigned until in this context, has reignited interest in Malachy's predictions. Proponents of the prophecy point to what they see as uncanny coincidences in the motto's alignment with historical popes. For instance, the motto for Pope John Paul II, De Labora Solaris, or the labour of the sun, is often connected with his global travels, which span the earth like the sun's journey across the sky, and his birth during the solar eclipse. Similarly, Pope Francis, as Petrus Romanus, is seen by some as fulfilling the prophecy through his Italian heritage. His parents were Italian immigrants to Argentina, and his role as the Bishop of Rome. However, the authenticity of the prophecy is heavily debated. The Catholic Church has no official stance on the documents, and many theologians and historians consider it a prophecy first serviced in 1595, over 400 years after Malachy's death, in a book by Benedictine monk Arnold de Wine. Critics argue that the document was likely fabricated during the late 16th century of political propaganda to influence a papal conclave. The mottos for the popes before 1595 are remarkably accurate, while those for later popes become increasingly vague and open to interpretation, lending credence to the theory that the text was written long after Malachy's time. Skeptics also point to the prophecy's reliance on symbolic interpretation, which allows for broad and subjective connections. For example, almost any pope could be linked to Peter the Ruddy, the legacy of Saint Peter. Additionally, the apocalyptic tone of the prophecy aligns with end times predictions that have repeatedly failed to materialize, from the Y2K scare to the 2012 Mayan calendar frenzy. The prophecy retains a devoted following, particularly among those who see global crises such as climate change, geopolitical decline, as signs of impending end foretold by Malachy. The idea of Rome's destruction and the Last Judgment carries profound implications, and its global followers. The city of Seven Hills, a clear reference to Rome, has long been spiritual and cultural center for Christianity. Its prophesied downfall, whether literal or metaphorical, raises questions about the future of the Church in the increasingly secular world. Some interpret the prophecy symbolically, suggesting that the destruction of Rome could represent the spiritual or institutional collapse, rather than the physical one, perhaps tied to ongoing challenges like declining church attendance or internal scandals. The conclusion is that the prophecy of Saint Malachy remains a fascinating, if controversial, piece of religious history. Whether viewed as a genuine prediction or a historical fabrication, its enduring appeal lies in the ability to spark reflection on the future of the Catholic Church and humanity itself. While the passing of the 112th Pope may not herald the end of the world, it serves as a reminder of the power of the prophecy to inspire both awe and skepticism. As the world moves forward, the true test of Malachy's vision may lie not in its literal fulfillment, but in the deeper questions it raises about faith, destiny, and the resilience of spiritual institutions in turbulent times. So this controversy erupts in Belarus over Lukashenko. President Lukashenko's plan to welcome over 150,000 or up to 150,000 Pakistani workers. So during a visit by Pakistani Prime Minister Sharif to Minsk on April 10th, President Lukashenko here in Belarus announced a plan to address the country's labour shortage by inviting up to 150,000 Pakistani workers to live and work in Belarus. The proposal, part of agreements to deepen bilateral ties, sparked immediate backlash on social media, where Belarusians voiced fears that such a large influx could negatively transform the nation. Critics pointed to examples like the Rotherham child sexual exploitation scandal in England, where grooming gangs, predominantly British Pakistani men, abused tens of thousands of children over 16 plus years, plus other cases of sexual assault on women over a period of time in many countries, alongside many other global cases raising concerns about crime and the safety of women and children. The outcry highlighted anxieties about cultural integration and public security in the country of 9 point. So, in response to the public outrage, President Lukashenko addressed the controversy in this video, which we're about to watch, defending his initiative.
There are problems with labor resources. This is a problem. There are labor resources everywhere. The problem with the European Union has engulfed Russia. Well, we get it. Although I've already half drunk in public 3 times, we've had productivity lately 3 times lower than in the European Union. That is in our country, according to popular saying. People make Belarus 3 times less than in the European Union. In this regard, I would like to differ on one of the topics that is being discussed on the internet today. After talks with Pakistani leaders, do you remember that conversation? They approached us about it. Our lack of labor resources contrasts with their abundance. Naturally, both the European Union, Russia, and probably we will have to agree in the near future that we will have people from other countries, especially from Asian countries. We negotiated with the Pakistanis. What we emphasize, we will develop an appropriate one. The program that will be approved by the place is by government agreement. That is, we need to develop a mechanism to prevent this from happening. Since today we and our people are trying to scare me, so I know how this will develop. People are not very interested in exciting our society. I can tell you in popular terms, unpopular. Well, if someone is afraid of foreigners, well, we also need to work, 3 people need to work, like at least, well, for 2 in the European Union, and in the next 10 to 15 years, we will not talk about a shortage of labor resources at all. We just need to work more. We don't want it very much. Frankly, I'm being candid, even if it's unpopular. There isn't a pressing need for the youth presence and similar matters in that area. We require specialized experts alongside Shabazz, and they provided your SHAF. Our team of specialists will be sent over, promptly joining discussions concerning the Baranovichi cotton mill. We have been turtles there for a long time. The legacy of the Soviet Union is good. There is a lot of underwear. There is simply no tunics there. We need everything there, but we don't have cotton. And where is it in Pakistan, they looked? Here you have wonderful factories. I speak beautifully, but my thoughts are tormented. We will provide you with these raw materials and our specialists. If you want, we are ready to produce products. And I am surprised that some have bitten this bait grabbed and begin to explain that you explain one smart person. I looked at the analysis and wrote, yes, my father never made a strategic mistake. What do you think? What do I want to do worse for Belarus? Yes, no, we are every 7 of every person. What is happening? And now, until we have made a decision, everyone is transparent. You can say on an X-ray, and no one insists on taking or not taking a leader, for example, Kamvol. The plant has arrived here with a group of 10 individuals whom I successfully located, seeking your approval. The police have registered these individuals, providing details on their residence and identities, while you bear criminal responsibility for their actions. As their caretaker, it is imperative you monitor them routinely to ensure accountability. What is that, isn't it? So, well, if anything, well, so to speak, the way out of this situation is to become more expensive. We need to give birth to 3, 4, or better yet, 5. We don't do anything for such people. We don't finalize it. True alone. We don't want to give birth, and we work with coolness that Mikhail Ivanovich is wrong, especially in agriculture. If we don't want to respond to the people like that, but we want wages to develop, we want the country to prosper and be independent. This way everything can be saved, but without labor resources it will be nothing.
It's the 39th anniversary of the Chernobyl disaster. Let's have a look at a glimpse into Belarus's haunted exclusive zone. On April 26th, yesterday, was marking the 39th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident. The Belarusian exclusion zone remains a stark reminder of the 1986 catastrophe. The Pahalgam State Radiation and Ecological Reserve, established in 1988, spans 215,000 hectares and encompasses 96 dead villages abandoned after the disaster. Once thriving communities are now buried beneath the earth, with bulldozers having pushed homes into pits, leaving only boulders inscribed with memorial plaques to mark their existence, each noting the village's name and number of houses. Since 2018, guided excursions have offered a glimpse into this eerie landscape, where the Chernobyl plant is visible from the reserve's borders, as you can see behind me. Visitors described an unsettling emptiness, clean, tidy roads stretched through a silent void, devoid of life. The buried villages and the desolate vistas evoke a profound sense of loss, standing as a testament to the enduring scars of the worst nuclear disaster. Let's have a look at some of these photos. Fort Knox exposed, the untold saga of America's gold heist. The name Fort Knox conjures images of an impregnable fortress brimming with towering stacks of gold bars protected by the might of the US military, a gleaming emblem of financial security. This vision, popularized by Hollywood and government narratives, is carefully crafted illusion. The truth about Fort Knox is far more unsettling. It houses the world's largest hoard of confiscated gold, seized from American citizens, and its contents remain shrouded in secrecy, unverified by any credible independent audit. What happened about Elon Musk's audit of Fort Knox? What happened about that? What lies within its vaults may be key to understanding one of the greatest financial deceptions in history. So let's unravel the story layer by layer and explore the hidden truths about Fort Knox, supplemented by the latest insights available. The Great Gold Confiscation of 1933. The saga begins during the Great Depression, the time of economic desperation. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, a decree that fundamentally altered the relationship between Americans and their wealth. This order required citizens to surrender their gold coins, bullion, and certificates to the government in exchange for paper dollars, under threat of severe penalties, fines up to $10,000 or equivalent to over $200,000 today, or up to 10 years in prison. Exemptions were minimal, allowing only small amounts of gold for personal use, such as jewelry or rare coins. Once the gold was collected, the government executed a second blow. In 1934, the Gold Reserve Act devalued the dollar at 41%, raising the official price of gold from $20.67 to $35 an ounce. For nearly a century, 1834 to 1933, the US dollar had been defined by 1/20th of an ounce of gold, anchoring its value and ensuring stability. FDR's actions untethered this foundation, effectively robbing citizens of their wealth. An American who surrendered an ounce of gold received $20.67 in paper currency, only to see its real value diminished as the government repriced gold higher, pocketing the difference. The official rationale was to stabilize the economy, curb gold hoarding, and stimulate growth during the Depression. In reality, it was one of the world's largest wealth transfers in history, funneling private wealth into government coffers. The confiscated gold was melted down, recast into bars, and centralized under federal control, with Fort Knox becoming its primary repository. Fort Knox, the vault of stolen wealth. Constructed in 1936 in Kentucky, Fort Knox was designed to secure this vast stash of seized gold, consolidating the government's dominance over the national's monetary assets. The fortress, with its granite walls, steel-lined vaults, and military defenses, was billed as the ultimate safeguard for America's wealth. Today, it reportedly holds 147 million ounces of gold, over 56% of the US claimed 261 million ounces in total reserves. The remainder is stored at the West Point Mint, Denver Mint, and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. However, the gold within Fort Knox is not what it seems. Unlike global standard for gold bullion, good delivery bars, which weigh 400 ounces and have minimum purity of 99.5% as set by the London Bullion Market Association, LBMA, most of Fort Knox gold is in coin bars. These bars, made of melted down pre-1933 US gold coins, contain 90% gold and 10% copper, reflecting the composition of the confiscated currency. Only 17% of gold, Fort Knox's gold, meets the good delivery standard, making it an anomaly among national reserves and less liquid in international markets. This distinction raises questions about the gold's usability and value. Coin bars are less desirable for global trade, as they require additional refining to meet LBMA standards. So why does the US, a financial superpower, hold such a large proportion of non-standard gold? The answer lies in the gold's origin. It was never intended for international markets, but rather to bolster domestic control during the crisis. The audit mirage, a century of secrecy. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of Fort Knox is the lack of transparency surrounding its contents. The US government claimed to hold 261 million ounces of gold in its facilities, with Fort Knox as a cornerstone, yet these figures have never been independently verified. So-called audits conducted in 1953 and 1974 were superficial at best. In 1953, a limited inspection was performed, but only a small fraction of the gold was examined. In 1974, audit, prompted by public skepticism, was equally inadequate, involving a cursory review of selected vaults with no comprehensive assay to confirm purity or authenticity. Again, what happened to Elon Musk's audit? The events were more public relations stunts than rigorous examinations designed to project confidence in the monetary system. No full independent audit conducted by a third party with no ties to the government has ever taken place. This fuels speculation. How much gold is actually there? Is it of the claimed purity? Has it been encumbered, leased, swapped, or pledged as collateral for debt? Who truly owns it, and who controls its custody? The absence of answers is particularly galling given the gold's history. Much of it was forcibly taken from private citizens who were promised stability in return. The American people have the right to know the status of their nation's reserves, yet the government has consistently resisted calls for transparency. If the gold is as secure as claimed, why oppose thorough public audit? Fort Knox in the modern era, renewed scrutiny. In recent years, Fort Knox has re-entered the public consciousness driven by growing distrust in financial institutions and government narratives. On April 23, 2025, former President Donald Trump reignited debate, announcing plans to visit Fort Knox with Elon Musk to see if the gold is still there. His statement, laced with skepticism, reflects a broader sentiment. After decades of secrecy, the public demand proof. Whether this visit materializes or devolves into another symbolic gesture remains to be seen, but it underscores the enduring mystery of Fort Knox. And as of yet, April 2025, there has been nothing since they said that. Adding to the intrigue, anomalies in the physical gold market have raised eyebrows. Reports of unusual price movements and supply constraints suggesting that central banks and bullion dealers may have been grappling with discrepancies in gold inventories, like the Bank of England. While no definite evidence links these irregularities to Fort Knox, the timing aligns with renewed scrutiny of the US gold reserves. Could the fortress be hiding more than just gold, or less? The bigger picture, a monetary reset looms. The Fort Knox saga is not an isolated tale, but part of a larger narrative about the global financial system. History shows that monetary resets, shifts in how money is defined and valued, create winners and losers. The 1933 gold confiscation was one such reset, stripping citizens of wealth to empower the government. Today, whispers of a new reset are growing louder, driven by digital currencies, geopolitical tensions, and eroding trust in fiat money. The secrecy surrounding Fort Knox may be a symptom of the system under strain. If the gold is not as claimed, or if it has been compromised through leasing or hypercorrection, the implications could be profound. Gold has long served as a hedge against uncertainty, and any revelation about Fort Knox could trigger seismic shifts in markets and public confidence. And we've got some additional insights from available data. Based on available information, the US gold reserves are valued at approximately $11 billion at historical book value, but could be worth over $500 billion at current market price, assuming $2,000 per ounce. However, the lack of modern assay makes it impossible to confirm the gold's quality or quantity. Some analysts speculate that the US may have less gold than claimed, with portions potentially leased to bullion banks or used in covert financial operations. Declassified documents from the 1970s reveal internal concerns about the gold's purity, yet no follow-up investigation was pursued. Posts on social media have amplified calls for the audit, with users citing Trump's comments and market anomalies as evidence of a cover-up. While these claims lack corroboration, they reflect the growing public appetite for transparency. Conversely, official statements from the US Treasury maintain that the gold is secure and accounted for, dismissing audit demands as unnecessary. So our conclusion, and the truth awaits. Fort Knox is more than a vault. It's a symbol of government power, secrecy, and the erosion of public trust. Built on the spoils of historic wealth seizure, its gold remains a mystery, shielded from scrutiny for nearly a century. The absence of a full independent audit fuels speculation, while recent developments, Trump's proposed visit, market irregularities, and public outcry suggest that the fortress's secrets may soon face a reckoning. As the world edges towards a potential monetary reset, the truth about Fort Knox could reshape our understanding of wealth, stability, and accountability. Whether the vaults hold the promised gold or a hollow illusion, the American people deserve clarity. Staying informed, questioning narratives, and demanding transparency are critical steps in navigating the uncertainties ahead. The story of Fort Knox is far from over, and its next chapter may redefine the future of money itself. And some news today that came in and I just wanted to cover is today on April 27, a vehicle attack at the Filipino Festival in Vancouver, Canada, resulting in multiple deaths and injuries, with the driver currently in custody. Details about the driver's identity or motives remain undisclosed as investigations continue. Here are some videos of that. And that's a wrap for live show 128. Huge thanks to everyone who tuned in and watched. Sorry for the minor sound and glitches. Comes with the territory when I'm on the road and not in the studio. I'll be back in the studio next week. If you haven't already, please give the thumbs up, share the video, and subscribe to our Rumble channel. We just hit 10,000 subscribers/followers and want to climb higher before May. If you'd like to support us financially, you can send Bitcoin to the QR code shown during the show. It's greatly appreciated. And a big shout out to our sponsor, the Emotional Support Animals Registry in the UK, the EU, and now the USA. Check out their websites and Instagram links in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you at the next show. No stars required.